happening tonight in Vancouver.
Because of how fast the Delta-driven, mostly Delta-driven cases are escalating, particularly in the west of the country, the window of opportunity to make that impact is definitely narrowing.
A warning, COVID-19 vaccination rates must increase now to avoid the worst of this Delta wave.
Protecting hospitals being blocked by protesters. After thousands of people surrounded hospitals in BC to protest the province's COVID safety measures, there are now calls for legal action from the province to prevent things like this from happening again.
La question au départ, c'était on va jusqu'où? Est-ce qu'on entend Monsieur
No clear winner after the first debate of this federal election.
The takeaway was, wow, that was 2 hours I'm lucky to get back.
This is City News Everywhere.
A Langley mother charged with the death of her 7-year-old daughter 3 years ago has been found not guilty. A judge at New Westminster Court found Carrie Ann Lewis not guilty in the death of her 7-year-old daughter, Aaliyah Rosa. Aaliyah was found next to the bathtub in her mother's apartment in July of 2018. Lewis was initially charged with second-degree murder in connection to the death. That charge was upgraded to first-degree murder in 2019. Prosecutors accused Lewis of drugging and drowning her daughter after a custody battle with Aaliyah's father. BC Supreme Court Judge Madam Justice Devlin ruled not guilty as Crown did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Lewis killed her daughter. Reporting in New Westminster, Ashley Burr, City News.
A dire warning about COVID-19 and a call to action from Canada's top doctors. They're saying cases are on the path to explode if vaccination rates don't ramp up immediately.
This is a crucial moment. We have a window of opportunity to rapidly accelerate vaccine uptake and close the protection gap in younger age groups with the lowest vaccine coverage.
That's what's needed to have the necessary protection against this current wave. It's sending infections tearing through unvaccinated populations, putting all healthcare capacity at risk.
Looking at certainly over 80% coverage in that eligible population as fast as possible. By as fast as possible, I do mean I would love that to be done by Labor Day.
That's 80% fully vaccinated who can be. 18 to 40-year-olds are the focus. They're one of the largest population cohorts with the most social contacts and the furthest behind in being immunized.
They're at about 63 to 68% fully vaccinated. So it is a tall order to get up to 80% in the next days. But I think we need to give it a good go.
Looking at this latest forecasting, the black and blue lines showing that current cases of about 3,500 new a day could explode to 15,000 a day in a month. That's if vaccinations and public health measures don't increase.
But because of how fast the Delta-driven, mostly Delta-driven cases are escalating, particularly in the west of the country, the window of opportunity to make that impact is definitely narrowing.
Models showing British Columbia, along with Alberta and Saskatchewan, facing the worst possible trajectories. The more transmissible Delta variant changing the goalposts across the board.
The original targets that we were talking about, 75, 80%, where we could start loosening public health measures. Now we're saying that you need to go much higher, shoot for the stars, go for 100% vaccine coverage.
Right now, only 77% of those who can be vaccinated in British Columbia are fully immunized. And they're advising everyone to exercise caution, fully vaccinated or not.
More broadly speaking, I think right now is not the time to gather in huge numbers with people that not within your household without taking a significant layers of protection and knowing what you're heading into.
And knowing that we could be heading into a wave much worse than those before if we don't.
If you want to avoid what we experienced in the second and third wave, especially with all of us, going back inside, with the fall and school and the colder weather, let's get our vaccination rates up.
We will see accelerations. So we've got not very much time, but any bit helps, and any speed would help.
For City News in Victoria, I'm News 1130's Lisa Yuzda.
Well, the latest COVID numbers are in as we head into the long weekend. BC is reporting 671 new cases of the virus, and sadly, 3 people have died. Hospitalizations are up. 215 people are in hospital tonight, 118 of them in intensive care. And when it comes to vaccinations, more than 85% of eligible adults have received their first dose, and just over 78% are double vaccinated. We are learning more about the victims in yesterday's fatal crash in West Vancouver. 2 people died in that crash on Cypress Bowl Road. Police say the group involved were celebrating the 20th birthday of one of the people who died. The driver of the car the 2 passengers were traveling in has been arrested and is facing criminal charges. Police believe speed and alcohol was a factor in the crash. The investigation into what happened is ongoing. Vancouver police are hoping to speak to a woman who witnesses say was sexually assaulted in Pacific Centre Mall last week. An employee at the mall saw a man grope a woman from behind. VPD says the assault happened near the escalator by the American Eagle store on the lower level. The suspect fled and was followed by mall security. Police officers caught the suspect on a bus near Hastings and Abbott Streets a short time later. The suspect was taken to jail and released pending further investigation. Police are appealing for the woman who was targeted to come forward to help with their investigation.
We understand that this would be a very frightening and even a traumatic experience for this woman, and she may have not even realized that this was intentional. So we really are appealing to this woman. If she is listening, we're asking her to come forward to speak with investigators, because what this man did is not tolerated by us. It is very serious, and we're taking it very seriously, and it's very important that she comes forward so we can get her evidence and then present charges to Crown.
People do have the right to protest. I think the issue here is that when that protest starts to create harms or impinge upon other people's fundamental rights and access to healthcare.
How do we protect our hospitals? After thousands of people surrounded hospitals in BC to protest the province's COVID safety measures, some are wondering if an injunction or bubble zones could be sought to ban these events near essential healthcare facilities. We first brought the question to BC's Health Minister Adrian Dix on Thursday.
Is that something that's maybe on the table? Can you confirm? Is that something that may be up for discussion behind the scenes?
I don't really have anything to say on that. Those actions would be taken if appropriate, under specific circumstances, I think. And it's not for me to say. What it is for me to say is that these protests shouldn't happen at hospitals.
City News has also reached out to the offices of BC's Attorney General David Eby and the Minister of Public Safety Mike Farnworth regarding the possibility of seeking an injunction or creating a bubble zone around hospitals. The response we received is that the Ministry of Health has already commented on it.
To see something happening when it doesn't need to, when we have so much that has been beyond our control with the pandemic, was just really heartbreaking.
Vancouver City Councillor Sarah Kirby-Young says she was disturbed seeing what happened at Vancouver General Hospital and hearing the stories of cancer patients having to make their way through crowds to get to chemotherapy appointments. Young feels something should be done.
I would support, if provincially, I think would make the most sense, to have a lead around designated those hospital service areas so that people can access the life-saving treatment and the emergency services that they need.
BC lawyer Cassandra Cronin says if the province decided to pursue an injunction, it would be quite a complicated ordeal.
Who would launch the litigation? We've got 5 different health authorities, and obviously they're overseen by the provincial government, but they are independent of one another, and each health authority might take a different approach. I think some people might be thinking of the abortion bubble zones that took place in the past, and in 1995, the province passed the first legislation in Canada protecting particular areas from protesters and limiting essentially protesting outside of clinics that offered abortion services to women who were seeking those services. But that was legislation that was passed that then could be enforced. And the challenge here is there is no legislation that's on the books currently that would create that kind of a bubble zone around hospitals.
Cronin says, frankly, she doesn't believe the province would want to take on the legal battle that would come with an injunction. Ashley Burr, City News.
Well, Vancouver police are warning people to stay away from this man. 39-year-old Ronald Campbell has been released from custody with strict conditions, and police say anyone who associates with him could be putting themselves in danger. VPD says Campbell has ties to the Lower Mainland gang conflict, and anyone close to him is at an increased risk of being exposed to violence. The band in tweet says it will be going ahead with its 6 p.m. call despite coyotes in the area, and they are the first in a series of concerts taking place at the Bowl. Marianas Trance and the Hallucination will also play in the weeks ahead. There has been a spate of attacks for months now, and in some cases, children have been injured. A curfew was previously put in place due to a threat of wildfires, but was recently extended because of the problem with the animals. The situation has hit some businesses in the park hard, which were already suing over the bike lanes set up throughout the area. They also do plan to sue over the coyote closure. Wally Opal is representing some of these businesses and says the responsibility falls on those in charge, and they appear to be avoiding his calls.
I have left phone messages for the researchers over there. I've sent a number of emails, and nobody responds to them. And they operate on their own devices. We want to sit down with the park board. We're not opposed to bike lanes. We know that the park board has challenges, but we want to work with them. But they really don't answer our calls or answer our responses when we email them.
Now, in a statement to City News, the provincial ministry responsible says that starting very soon, it plans to trap and euthanize up to 35 coyotes over a 2-week period. It plans to release further details about that initiative on Tuesday.
La question au départ, c'était on va jusqu'où? Est-ce qu'on entend M. O'Toole?
Nobody won, and that was a little bit disappointing. After 2 hours of listening to 4 men argue, no one came out really with a clear sign of, wow, we did something impressive. And that's for me, the takeaway was, wow, that was 2 hours I'm not going to get back.
Plenty of bickering, but no real winner after the first debate of this federal election. Analyst Karim Bullis says no leader went off script or landed anything like a knockout punch, but Quebec's 78 seats could be crucial in any minority government.
It's a great place to pick up a tremendous amount of influence, because at this point, the numbers are showing that whoever wins will likely have a minority government. So Quebec could represent the balance of power.
The nearest thing to fireworks happened when NDP boss Jagmeet Singh and Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet became embroiled in a dispute about systemic racism. Blanchet called on Singh to apologize to a BQ member who voted against a motion on systemic racism in the RCMP. At the time, Singh called MP Alain Thérien a racist, resulting in Singh's ejection from the House of Commons. The BQ say Thérien voted nay because the Public Safety Committee was already looking into the same issue, but Singh hasn't backed off from his belief.
Whether folks are comfortable calling it systemic racism or institutional racism, it is clear that when we look at what happened to Indigenous people, it was by design. It wasn't by chance or by mistake. It was clearly a design to strip Indigenous people of their language, their culture, and their identity by stripping kids from their families and taking them to residential institutions.
Meanwhile, Justin Trudeau was repeatedly attacked for his decision to call an election during a fourth wave, but Trudeau continues to insist that he needs a majority to carry out his ideas.
And we are the only ones with a plan to get through this pandemic with real leadership. And that's not just good for the pandemic and health side of things. It's also what allows us to recover our economy, to recover jobs, and to make sure we are building better on climate change, on housing, on healthcare, and on childcare.
Aaron O'Toole, meanwhile, clarifying his position on assault-style firearms. At the debate, O'Toole said he'd maintain the current ban introduced by Justin Trudeau, but the Conservative platform clearly says he'd repeal the May 2020 order making that ban.
We will maintain the ban on assault weapons. We will also, as I said today, work with police on gang violence, which has gone up incredibly over the last few years, and target the illegal smuggling of firearms. If you speak to police and law enforcement, The increase in violence in our cities is driven by organized crime, by street gangs using illegally smuggled firearms. We will go after it.
Party leaders will have another chance to make their impression with the remaining 2 debates scheduled for next week. The French language debate is first on Wednesday night, with English on Thursday. In Ottawa, Xiaoli Li, City News.
The NHL, IIHF, and the NHLPA reached a deal Friday that will allow NHL players to participate in the 2022 Beijing Olympics. The league can still withdraw from the games if the COVID-19 pandemic forces a change of plan. COVID-19 insurance is not part of the agreement, but the IIHF will provide a fund for any players who lose salary to the disease. If all goes as planned, it will be the first time NHL players participate in the Olympics since 2014, after skipping the 2018 games in South Korea.
For wheelchair athletes, getting involved in sports can be more expensive. One local former Paralympian shares how she found her lifelong passion and credits an organization that helps make sport more accessible. You competed in the Athens 2004 Paralympics. Can you share with us your journey up until that point?
My journey was that I really never considered myself an athlete before I had a spinal cord injury, although I was a dancer. And then when I sustained my spinal cord injury in 1996, I refused to do any sport whatsoever. Everybody thought that it would be really great for me and build this community. It took a number of years, and I went out and tried wheelchair racing, and I felt like I really loved the freedom. I loved the socialization and the community that it brought me. And it also, I felt like I was on par with all the other athletes. And we have an integrated sport in athletics. So we also have able-bodied people that also compete as well. I'm not personally competing against them, but they're still racing. And so it's kind of fun, you know, you have all these different disabilities and abilities, and we're all sort of at the same level and at the same races and, you know, sharing that same excitement.
Something making the rounds on social media. How do Olympian and Paralympian medal bonuses compare across the globe? Australia, Olympic gold medal cash prize, $20,000. Paralympic gold medal cash prize, $0. Japan, Olympic gold medal cash prize, $63,000. Paralympic gold medal cash prize, $38,000. The only country that is equal is the United States. Canada, Olympic gold medal cash prize, $22,000. Paralympic gold medal cash prize, $0. If you had a few moments to speak to the Canadian Olympic Committee, what would you like to say?
Well, I mean, I don't know where that money comes from. I'm guessing they have a lot of sponsorship opportunities that come through the committees. I would like to see the same opportunities for the Paralympic Association as well. I'm not sure why that doesn't happen, or at least equal playing field, because the same amount of effort goes into being a Paralympic athlete as it does an Olympic athlete. So there definitely needs to be some equity and equality in that, and at least to know that someone's looking into it. It also helps to support, you know, the provincial organizations too that are helping these athletes, because I know with BC Wheelchair Sports, you know, they have loan programs so that, because wheelchairs are so expensive. I mean, a sports chair is, you know, $5,000 to $10,000. Not a lot of people can, you know, and that's comparable to a pair of running shoes. Right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, those expenses, and to have these sport organizations be able to, you know, loan you a chair so that you can compete is so important. So also, you know, looking at those avenues to be able to support the provincial organizations is really important as well.
To find out how you can get involved in wheelchair sports, go to bcwheelchairsports.com. For City News, I'm Sportsnet 650's Lindsay Horsting.
This week in science, we're out for a walk talking about tardigrades and how they walk. Now, if you're not familiar with tardigrades, know that they are super interesting. They're very tiny 8-legged creatures found in almost every environment on Earth because despite their small size and squishy bodies, they are almost indestructible. The fact that these critters can walk at all is pretty unusual. For one, they don't have any bones. They also rarely grow past 1 millimeter in length, and most things that small don't bother walking, opting instead for wiggling around, like worms do. And it was assumed by scientists that a tardigrade's movement was fairly clumsy, like a bear, which plays into their adorable nickname, water bears. But some new research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences show these critters actually move more like insects, which are 500,000 times their size. Scientists set up a series of microscopes and high-speed cameras in a lab and let some water bears scurry around on various surfaces. They found since the creatures need to dig in and push off with their claws, they don't move so well on smooth glass, but give them something softer, and they can really go. And unlike, say, a horse, which has different stepping patterns for different speeds, a tardigrade has the same stepping pattern regardless of how fast it's going, like a spider. There are two possibilities here. Maybe tardigrades and insects share a common ancestor somewhere way back on the evolutionary tree, or maybe they learned to walk and run independently, simply finding it helpful for survival. Either way, this could help inform the design of mobile microbots, if nanotechnology ever gets that far. One more fun fact to end off on here, there may be tardigrades alive on the moon right now. They were stowed away aboard Israel's Bereshit moon mission, which ultimately crash-landed in 2019. Now we know that tardigrades can survive the vacuum of space, and there's a slight chance they survive the impact. So there you go, moon bears. With This Week in Science on City News, I'm News 1130's Curtis Dorian.
And shoppers on Vancouver Island did a double take Thursday when they found themselves browsing through racks along a not-so-mystery shopper. Billy the Goat, there he is, strolled into the Courtney Winners and headed straight to the purses, much to the delight of staff and customers. After browsing through the store, he was helped out by a shopper. Billy is something of a local celebrity and even has a Facebook page dedicated to his adventures. His owner, Eduardo Uranga, has had Billy since 2015 and says his pet goat has a big personality and a love of adventure.
I didn't lock the gates properly yesterday, and he's very powerful, and he just pushed it open. And some other time he just goes under the fence or finds a hole in the fence, or he's really good at escaping. So it doesn't happen very often, but when he does, he always creates this good feeling from the community. It's amazing. Like every time it happens, like there's 10 or 20 people that really had a great day because of him.
Now reunited with his owner, Billy has been enjoying his usual walks in the woods. Yes, Billy's adventures, I guess, can't be bleaked. Your next edition of City News is tonight at 11. Thanks so much for joining us this evening, and have a great night.